I would love to talk about Mary Magdalene. I wept for a whole hour because I could feel her presence there. I could feel her energy. And I wept for a whole hour just remembering her presence. And then the memory started coming, like the memory of me being there in that time of Jesus. I think I was just a little girl and she would teach children. So I was like fortunate in that incarnation to be one of the little girls that, she taught. And I remember her holding my hand and that love, talk about the love of the Divine Mother. She was an avatar. She was not a prostitute. She was an avatar.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel within. I am Mira, and I'm delighted to be speaking with Kana Koinuma today, and she will be leading us on a mystical journey that started in Mount Shasta and then went to different parts of the globe. Hi, Kana, and welcome to the channel within.
Hi, Mira. So nice to meet you. And thank you for
Likewise.
having me. Yeah, thank you for having me. I know we just had a little moment before and we're like, I love you. I love you
When
already.
I heard you speak, I told you I felt my heart
Oh,
expanding, and I am so glad that, we can be speaking to each other. So.
yes. I'm so glad you reached out to me. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to start a little bit about your background?
My background is I did have a spiritual master when I was 16. So, and that was like the last gift we're talking about fathers. That's the last gift that my father gave to me because my father passed away when I was 20, really young. He was 51. And a few years before his passing, he brought home this amazing spiritual master, female, Chinese from Hong Kong. And she was a mixed race. So she was like part Portuguese, Incan blood. I mean, just, a mixture. And she was a Chinese herbalist, really embodying Kuan Yin in human form. She really was in service to Kuan Yin. We would hear all about Kuan Yin and everything that Kuan Yin wanted her to do. She would do on a mission. She would bring in love and light and in the war torn areas. And she did this all under the radar. Like she was such a all for free. All her meditations, everything that we learned was all offered for free. So I'm so grateful for her. And my father brought her home one day. I was living in Japan, and my father brought her home one day, and I was 16, I believe. And she's like, we have a beautiful guest. And that's how my spiritual journey started when I was 16 with this beautiful spiritual master, just talking about love. Her mission was divine love, sending love, being love, radiating love. And that was the last parting gift I would say my father left for all of us, from me and my family. Because when my father passed, my spiritual master was with him through every step of the way. He had pancreatic cancer, but with all the herbs and everything, usually it's a really painful cancer, and my father refused to do chemo. But with all the herbs, like he had a little bit of bloating and some pain, but it was so mild, because of my spiritual master. She really helped him process. And she said it was karmic. This is the last, painful experience in this incarnation, but then he'll be free, and after he passed, our spiritual master explained why he passed and why he chose to go instead of staying. And, it was just easier to leave and take on a new body. And it was really helpful. And when he passed, he actually, when my father passed, he threw up this bile. I guess in pancreatic with pancreatic cancer, they like throw up bile, and usually I guess it's really horrible smelling, but it smelled like roses and jasmine. It was so beautiful. It was like such a sacred, beautiful experience, and I owe that to my spiritual master, and her name was Dolores Hand. Who transitioned in the 90s, and she's like, I'm leaving now, I'm leaving. She let us know. She taught
Oh,
us
wow.
everything. Yeah, she taught us everything we needed to know, but she would be the one that took us on retreats to Mount Shasta.
Wow.
And
Can you
yeah,
talk about
every
that some
summer.
more?
Yes, absolutely. So she would take us every summer. So we would have a Japanese group because I'm Japanese, and my mother and father would have a spiritual group in Japan, and that kept growing and growing as everybody started loving Master and Master's teaching. So every summer it became a ritual. The Japanese would come, and we would meet at Mount Shasta, and again, it was all free. She didn't offer anything. So it was just on a donation basis. And she would be the first one, the last one up the mountain, but the first one up. She'd be the last one making sure that we all started walking, but she somehow miraculously, she's like waiting for us going, hello, So, and we have so many stories of her shape shifting, meaning disappearing, reappearing, transforming. She was a true like avatar. She would know how to like materialize, like dematerialize and materialize, maybe like Mahavatar Babaji, and but she would never say it, but the her, the students would witness it and see it. So that's how we start every summer. And every summer we go to Mount Shasta and have this mystical experience. And I remember one time, I think it might have been the last Mount Shasta retreat before I went off to college, because, I went off to college um, and I still remember this. And I think this is how I think she initiated me into that heart. Uh, I think she opened my heart. She was the first one to open my heart. And it was this heart initiation. I remember it so beautifully in Mount Shasta. We rented a space and she had candles lit and everything. And we did, chanting. And her favorite chant, which was Om Namah Shivaya, you
I
know?
heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though, her tradition was, Kuan Yin and thing, but she also believed in, Shiva, and it's just, she just embraced everything, ascended masters, Lord Cthulhu. And so she would chant Namah Shivaya. We'd have these beautiful chants. And then she went one by one with the candle and touched our hearts. And it was the most profound experience. I'm hoping that people can feel this and we could, bring her energy in. And she would literally touch your heart, and it was like this heart expansion, instant heart expansion. So that's when I was initiated, I think, into my heart space. That's when I had my first initiation. There's been many more since, but that's when she awakened me into my heart. And she would always say, there's so many pathways to God. You can go through the mind and it could just lead you like this, right? In circles. But she said the quickest and safest way to God, the quickest and safest way to God was through the heart, because it's through love, and there's no polarity, there's no duality. It's just pure love. And I believe that because I've been meditating in my heart since I was 16. And trust me, the first few years, I'm 16. Do you think I feel anything? No, I'm just sitting there going, I don't feel anything, just, thinking about boys, silly things. But the one thing I kept up was the meditation. you know, from then on, I would go, we meet with her every month. We would do a monthly meditation. But after my dad passed, she took us all under her wing. So we were like her extended family. So we would see her all the time, and she took my mother under her wings. They were like sisters, and so they would shop together, and we would just be together all the time. So I think that was like who knew down the road that I would be on the spiritual path. I had no idea, but she was the one that kind of prepped me and really kept me in my heart. And so the one thing I maintained throughout all the years, I'm 57 now, but the one thing, even through my marriage and through, children, the one thing I maintained was meditation. I always meditated through my heart. That's one thing that I did, and yeah, so that's my background, was this amazing spiritual master.
That is so beautiful.
Right.
So, Kana, did she choose? Why was Mount Shasta selected of all places?
Good question. Mount Shasta is a very sacred mountain. She was also connected to Saint Germain, which I could feel Saint Germain's presence. Saint Germain, I don't know if, I think many of you know, it was also supposedly Jesus's father, Joseph.
I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, Saint
Okay.
Germain is now supposedly, this is, what I learned, was Saint Germain is now kind of like in charge of this yuga, or this era, or this time frame, this age, the Aquarian age. So Saint Germain is in charge of the Aquarian age. Yeah, and so he had many incarnations, and Joseph, being Jesus's father, was one of them. And so his energy is really strong, and I have many mystical experiences in Mount Shasta where I would see this violet flame, in my dream. There's actually a set, if anyone wants to go to, well, let me put this, if anyone's interested in going to Mount Shasta, actually Reverend Bill is doing a retreat May 1st through the 4th for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, May 1st through the 5th, and there's still space available. If anyone wants to come to the retreat, there's still space available. And I'll be there, and I'll be leading the sunrise meditation like Master did. So I will, and it's not mandatory, but if anyone wants to come and do a sunrise meditation, I'll be leading that in Mount Shasta, and it's going to be a beautiful retreat. So if anyone's at all interested in Mount Shasta and would like to come to a retreat, the timing is impeccable. Yeah, we're going to be having a retreat in Mount Shasta in May, so May 1st through the 4th or 5th. So if anyone's interested, email me, kanakoinuma@gmail.com. And yeah, if anyone's interested, yeah, but that's why, because it's a lot, and a lot of UFOs, right? A lot of like, you
Yes.
know, cosmic, I would say cosmic, um, yeah, brothers and sisters land there a lot, come, and you see a lot of like spaceship clouds, so there's a lot of galactic, let's put that, galactic beings from other higher dimensions that come to Mount Shasta. So there's also, I mean, there's so many things about Mount Shasta I could share that's really sacred. There's also fifth dimensional beings called Telos. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've heard about them. Yeah. So tell
Yes,
us, can
they
you,
live. Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a while since I shared about Telos. There's a beautiful book about the Telos. It's like, I think, in 5 parts. I've read this a long time ago, but if anyone's interested in learning more, there's a beautiful book called The Telos. I think it's like a 5-part series. I forget who wrote it, but if you Google Telos book, there's a book. But they live underground. They live in Mount Shasta. And I personally have had many encounters with them, and it's interesting because as I'm talking, I could feel Saint Germain coming in. I could feel the people of Telos coming in, and I would love to. I don't consider myself a channel. I think I'm more of an interpreter. I hear what they say and I'm interpreting. But what I want, I could hear Saint Germain saying, "I'm more present there than ever before." So if anyone wants to experience my purest form of energy using and violet flame is used to transmute energy. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, people use the violet flame to just transmute thought forms, anything. And he's saying, I'm there, like my energy is there, more powerful than ever before.
wow.
So just yeah, I just wanted to bring that because he's saying that, and I believe that actually a rock called the Ascension Rock in Mount Shasta where supposedly Saint Germain, that's where he ascended from that rock. So I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a rock called Ascension Rock dedicated to Saint Germain, and it's really powerful. And his energy, whether he ascended there or not, I don't know, but his energy is definitely there.
Yeah.
And I actually have pictures of I didn't take this picture, but someone took a picture there at Ascension Rock. And I have the picture. It's violet light from above, beautiful violet light just coming down. So it's definitely magical. And to meditate there is amazing. So anyone going to Mount Shasta, look for Ascension Rock. There are signs. He is there. His energy is there, more powerful than ever before. If anyone wants to tune into Saint Germain and his amazing energy, Mount Shasta. So back to Telos. So Telos are fifth dimensional beings that live underground, holding that high vibration. And one time I went with my family to Mount Shasta in the wintertime and I got stuck. My car got stuck in the snow and, driving up the mountain and there was no help. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're stuck. What am I going to do? And up here out of nowhere, like nowhere, there was not a person in sight. And I'm looking at my tire and all of a sudden behind me comes this gentleman with all the tools and he just digs me out and leaves. And I believe that was definitely a gentleman from Telos. I felt like he was a divine being that just appeared, helped me, and then disappeared again. And I was just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because there was no footprints, there it wasn't like I didn't see him from anywhere, like he just literally appeared, helped me, and then I look back and he's gone. Like you can't walk that fast.
Did you get a chance to see what he looked like?
Yeah, I saw he was like, in human form. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he was
Okay.
in Fuma, really loving, kind, just of service. I could feel his heart energy, just really loving, and I think my heart knew that he was from Telos, just under, they just kind of come and help and then leave. So, and in my meditations on Mount Shasta, I was transported inside Telos as well. And it was more of a experience. There's no talking, but it was just like this divine experience. And how I was guided there was I was all by myself going to the mountain to meditate, and this big hummingbird, like, usually hummingbirds are like this, like, I kid you not, it was this like big, huge hummingbird. So I knew it was definitely divine. Like, I've never seen a hummingbird so big. So the hummingbird just spun around me and just went, and then just looked at me in the face and then left. And that's when, because I was still walking, that's when I knew, okay, I need to sit down and meditate here. It was like the hummingbird going, this is the spot, meditate here. And so I meditate and I'm being sent underground. Like, I could feel that I'm being transported, and I could feel this like crystalline city, and it was just a divine, peaceful, just loving, again, more love, a loving experience of just this crystalline energy in its purest form, the purest form of what the earth is capable of carrying throughout the entire planet, but at least it's maintained there. And what I'm feeling and sensing from the people of Telos right now is, I know there's a lot of war going on, in the media, Iran, um, uh, Ukraine, but the people of Telos, they're saying, this crystalline energy, that's why we've maintained this purest form of energy and we radiate it out so that the world will stay intact, right? So that we won't explode. We won't. So if anyone's concerned, no, they will not let it happen. And it's up to us, right? It's up to us to carry that frequency of love, because the more we carry love, each and every one of us are so important, because the more we carry that love, like David Hawkins says, someone vibrating at the vibration of love, which is 520, counteracts like hundreds of thousands. So we do make a difference, but it's so funny because the Telos beings right now are saying that's why we're rating it out more than ever. So they're like, don't worry, don't go into fear about it. Like, it's all coming up to be healed, to be right, purged, to be transformed. But they're saying, don't worry, we're not going to explode. The timeline we're in, the one who's ever seeing this, the timeline that you're seeing, we are going into more love right now. We're going into more, yeah, more peace, more harmony. So they're saying not to worry. Do not worry about the war. We are here. We are radiating so much love, and connecting to everybody's hearts. So the more you connect to these higher, connect to God, connect to source, connect to these, higher dimensional beings, however you want to connect, but they will magnify your love. They will magnify it, and imagine all that love, like, embracing the planet, because we do make a difference. I do this I try to do it every day, every morning, embracing, the earth with love. And I put the globe in front of me. I do sound healing. It does make a difference, because one person vibrating at the energy of love counteracts like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions at this point, who knows? But we do matter, and love does
Yeah.
matter.
That's
Yeah,
a beautiful thing to do for the rest of us. And then
yeah,
it's so nice to know that we're getting help from these
absolutely.
beings as well.
Yes, and what I want to share also, this is a different story, but I feel like also important. Thank you, beings from Telos. I'm really grateful. I feel like, I'm just the interpreter, but I could feel their energy and their love coming through, and they're saying not to worry, don't worry, we're here. This is why they have a contract to be there in the sun of, in Mount Shasta too, like, that's their soul mission, right? To just cleanse and purify. But I think, we need to take responsibility as humans and not rely. I feel like, they're kind and generous, but how about we take our own responsibility and clean up our own energy, right? and really trying and staying in harmony with love and peace as much as we can. But the other thing that I want to share is I went to an ashram in India in September 2024, and I went to Swami Sri Kaleshwar's ashram during Navratri, the 9 nights of the goddess. I feel very connected to the Divine Mother. Always have Kuan Yin, right? My spiritual master was literally the Divine Mother, Kuan Yin. When I went to that ashram, I had so many mystical experiences with the mother herself, Mahakali,
She
Ma.
is one of my favorites.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Mahakali came to life. It's Penakonda is the birthplace of Mahakali. And I could feel it. Yeah, there's a beautiful cave there. Her energy is so strong there. I believe it. And that was my first encounter with Mahakali, like in that visceral, she's one of the goddesses that I really didn't know much about. Like I knew Durga, I knew Lakshmi, Saraswati, but boy, she came to life in that, in the ashram, in the cave, and just really showed me some healing things and
What did her
techniques.
energy feel like, Anna?
Oh, fierce, but loving. It's like a loving, like I was not afraid at all. It was loving, but fierce, and like she was. And I'm being guided to share, like, if you ever need to clear energy, if there's any let's say you're angry, or even like, you get disrupted by someone else's energy. She was I was embarrassed, but she would show me like this dance where you're like going like this and dancing. She goes, ha, 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 ha. But she's like, that clears anything, that clears any energy. So just saying, ha, ha, and she was actually doing this dance like, ha, ha, showing me like, do that and it'll clear anything. And I'm like, oh, I'm dropping. I'm so embarrassed to be like, ha, ha, ha. But I could do it in my head, and I could just do it at home. But just the word, ha, like, ha, ha, ha. Like karate, they go, kya, right? Ha. Same thing. It clears and cuts energy. So, that's a good tool to use if you feel like your boundaries being violated. You can even say it inside, right? You don't have to say it out loud. You can just say that inside, Or if you want to clear the energy of any room, of course, Om always works. But if it's like a strong energy that you just want to clear right away, you could even say it inside, in your head, ha, 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 you know. But after me, being in the essence of all these divine beings at the ashram and Swami Kaleshwar, who transitioned, I could feel his energy, Jesus's energy. We are just talking about this. There's a garden called the Jesus Garden, and his energy is very strong. So I had like all these saints coming in meditation, and they all said, remember this feeling of love. There's more love on the planet than ever before. Because they said, when you leave this ashram, and this was before, all the war started. This is in 2024, like September. So this is before everything's like, when you leave, you're going to see the news and you're going to see things that, that might be alarming, but they're like, do not buy into it. Meaning, of course there's war, but it's not like don't look the other way. But they said, do not buy into that illusion, because the reality is there's more love on the planet, and no one's putting that on the news or YouTube. There's more love available, and the rishis, these saints, are saying we are really, like, we are very active on this planet right now more than ever. So they
That is
said,
so comforting.
right, they said, remember this love, and remember this love, because this is the truth. And in my world, since I've come back, everything's just been like the divine love has been expanding, expanding, expanding even more and more. So I'm just focusing on love. And remember, we get more of what we notice. So stay focused on love and send love to those areas in Iran, Ukraine. We're not saying, oh, it doesn't exist, but, sending love and just being in the vibration of love. That's the most helpful thing. And study the saints, stay in the energy of love. Yeah. And so since I've been back, I've just been, just more love, more expansion, more expansion. And I recently met this amazing Indian master, another female. She's 52, Maiji. She lives right here an hour and a half away from me in Los Angeles, and she's been here since 2010. And I didn't even know about her. Right? Her name is Maiji. Yeah, Maiji. We call her Maiji. Yeah, she's from India. She's in India right now. She has a beautiful restaurant called the Red Dot Restaurant, vegetarian food. Amazing. Oh, I've never experienced food like her. She made food and I could feel the bliss. I could feel her infusing love into the food. Instant bliss. I'm drinking her chai, eating her food. I'm like, oh my God, I've never had such a divine experience. And her coming into my life was proof that love does matter and making food with love does matter. I'm like, if I ate like that every day, we wouldn't have cancer, we wouldn't have illness. It was such a divine experience, and it really made me confirm that love does matter, and how much the how much you can hold is up to you, right? But the more we can hold, the more impact we have on others. So keep expanding. There's no end to it. From my experience, when you think your heart expanded, there's even another level, another level, another level. There's no end to this level of love. And she showed me that, and she is just a big, again, she said she had her awakening in 2009, just pure love, literally like a walking incarnation of the Divine Mother. She fully merged with the Mother. So again, since I returned from India, in my world, it's just been nothing but love and more love and more love and more love and just more divine experiences. And again, I was just introduced to her through my dear, spiritual friend. So I wasn't even looking, it's like when you're in the space of divine love, you're just guided and just invited, and like how you reached out to me and how we had this connection. It's just, you just say yes, you just show up.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to reassure everybody there's more love on the planet. Focus on love. Make the intention to be more loving. Make the intention to meet more people, that carry that vibration of love, and just be and keep soaking yourself in love, because there's more love on the planet. Yeah. And I believe
Yes.
that. That's my
Yes.
experience.
Yes, for sure. So, Kana, were you going to share the experience with Christ?
Yes, I know we both love Christ.
Yes.
We both love Jesus.
Yes.
And yeah, I've never shared this on any podcast before, so I wanted to share this because I don't want to keep repeating myself. But I have the privilege of going to the Holy Land in 2019. So I went to Egypt twice in one year in 2018. I went in the summer and I went in the winter and had this profound experience, right? Again, mystical, lots of codes, lots of, connection with Isis, Osiris, just that divine feminine and masculine Shiva Shakti energy. And so 2019, I was guided to go to the Holy Land, which I did. And, I went to the Holy Sepulchre where supposedly didn't feel his energy, went to Jerusalem, went to all those touristy places, didn't feel his energy, went to Bethlehem. I'm like, nope, 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 because I know his energy like the back of my hand. I love him so much. He's come to, he's also one of my mentors, so he comes, you know, many times in my meditation. So I know his energy really well. Sometimes I love him so much I just want to crawl inside him. But we went to the Sea of Galilee, went to Nazareth, and oh, when we stayed along the Sea of Galilee, we got to swim in the Sea of Galilee. It was like I felt like a mermaid, so it was so magical. If you ever have a chance to swim in the Sea of Galilee, it's so magical, so mystical. I highly recommend it. Go when it's warm, and so we swam, and I think in that area, there's a town called Capernaum. And it actually says Jesus's town. I think that's where he taught a lot, So I did feel his energy in Nazareth. That was beautiful. We saw, Mother Mary's home, Joseph's home. That was very sacred. It was beautiful. But Capernaum, it's right off the Sea of Galilee. It says Jesus's town, and that's where Peter's house is. So there's remnants of Peter's house there. And I think because I don't know, you probably know more than I do, because I don't know about the Bible, but I guess he taught at Peter's house. He taught, and so Peter's house is there in Capernaum, okay, and there's a church built around Peter's house. So there's this beautiful like modern church, and there's like a plexiglass above Peter's house. So there's a plexiglass, you can look down and see the remains of Peter's house, and there's a church built around it. So here I am on a spiritual retreat, and I look into the plexiglass, and as I'm looking, out comes, I kid you not, out comes Christ, just his etheric body, what it's like hologram, whatever. But I'm not a seer. I don't see, I feel. But I felt his presence just come. It was so sacred. I felt his presence come in. I'm like, oh my God, it's Christ. I'm like, I have to sit down. So I was guided to sit down, and he literally gave me a blessing like this on my forehead. And he didn't say a word. He just gave me an energetic transmission. He gave me a darshan and just literally infused me. It was so powerful that I almost was knocked out. And I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. Like, it's like, I don't know if I could take any more. So I had this really beautiful, divine, experience from Christ himself in the Holy Land. So if anyone wants to feel his energy, go to Capernaum. Capernaum is where his energy is. Go to that church. I don't know the name of the church, but it's probably, the one of the most famous ones. So I'm sure it'll be, everybody will know. But it's in Capernaum, and he is definitely there. The other place I felt his energy was Jericho. Jericho. I guess there's like a monastery there, which I didn't get to go, but we stopped just for like a quick rest break. And the minute I got off, I'm like, oh, I could feel his presence here too. Like it's really strong. I don't know if that's where he spent 40 days and 40 nights. I don't know because I don't know the Bible, but I could feel his presence really strongly. And I remember going, gosh, I only have 15 minutes here. If I ever come back, I would love to spend my time here and go to that monastery. So if anyone has, has an opportunity to go to the Holy Land and go to those two places, his energy is most definitely there. And you can absolutely have a profound experience with Christ himself. He is very much alive in the Holy Land. Yeah, and might not be where you expect it. His energy is beautiful, and if you're open to it. And again, I wasn't asking for it. I wasn't saying Christ appear. I was just kind of minding my own business, and again, but my heart was always open, right? My heart was always open and available for these divine mystical experiences. So just keep your heart open and allow your heart to guide you, and just allow these experiences to happen without having to seek for it. It'll just happen naturally. So I just want to pause and really bring his energy through. Is it okay if I bring it through sound?
Well, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm on my little mic, but hopefully you can hear. Let me
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
use. Okay. But I'm guided to just bring his energy through, and and I hear him saying, I am always with you. I'm always with you. You call on me. I'm always with you. I belong to all. I am not of any religion. I belong to all. And it's so interesting. He's saying, my love is infused in that Sea of Galilee. So he said, all my love is just infused in that sea. So if you ever have a chance to go swimming in that sea, he's like, the reason why it was magical was you were feeling the love of the divine, that Christ love, yeah, the love of Christ. And he's saying it's kind of like a baptism of sorts, right? Or like a cleansing and
Oh,
purifying. Yeah. So you go in that and swim in there, you'll get cleansed and purified in that divine sacred love. So that's interesting. He's saying that. Yeah, my love is in there. So anyone that has a chance to go in there and swim or put their body in there, they'll get a cleansing. Yeah. And a
thank you
blessing.
so much for that, Kana. That was
Yeah,
just
my pleasure.
beautifully, for that beautiful blessing. and your voice
Thank you,
is
Christ. It's Christ. Thank Christ.
and
Just the
thank
interpreter
you for
here.
allowing him to bless us in this manner and to use your voice.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you. My pleasure. I know we were talking about shame, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
I'd be happy to address that because maybe not many people want to address shame in their
yes, yes.
podcast, but I would be happy to address that because we were both talking about we're both Asian and like if you're born Asian, you're pretty much born into shame.
Yes.
And, and for me, that's definitely been my go-to. And I didn't even realize that was my go-to default setting. Every time, like after my divorce, I would have so much shame around, having to struggle financially because I was a stay-at-home mother. I didn't have a job. So I would have to, I had to start from scratch. And it took, it wasn't overnight. I'm like still building, my career and um, profession. And so I remember like struggling financially. That was my weakest area. And I remember being in shame about it, shame having to, borrow from my best friend. And I just had so much shame. And I'm like, wow, you know what? I really need to work on this shame. I really need to transcend this so I don't have to, because shame leads to unworthiness, undeservedness, right? And that affects our right to exist. I think in other podcasts, I was talking about our organismic rights, our fundamental birthright. And our birthright, we do have a right to exist. We don't have to earn it, achieve it, work hard for it. We have the right to exist. And when we don't feel worthy because of shame, our right to exist gets compromised, which will affect our finances, which will affect our career, which will affect our relationship.
Everything.
Everything, right? So it's like, what's first, the unworthiness or the shame? Shame or unworthiness, right? But I think it's a really good topic to talk about. So as I was healing and working through my own shame, I had this huge epiphany. Again, it was an epiphany that I just came on my own, just light bulb moment was, oh my gosh, the antidote to shame is self acceptance, like radical self acceptance. Because if I could accept that part of me that hadn't had the capacity to make money yet, that I had to borrow, but if I accepted that part of myself, I wouldn't have been in shame, right? Or like, this whole feeling of not good enough or like making a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. That's part of being human. So if we can love these parts of us that we feel are so unlovable and then we go into shame about, that we're not perfect yet, those parts, if we can actually love those parts, really accept and love those parts of ourselves, the angry parts, the guilty parts, the part, especially the parts that feel not enough. That's the illusion because we're born enough. You don't look at a baby and go, I'm sorry, you're not enough. A baby's born enough. That means we're born enough because we were once babies, right? So worthiness, in reality, worthiness and value can never be added or taken away because we are born worthy. We're just remembering we never weren't. So that was the big epiphany is like, oh my gosh, if we could just accept all parts of ourselves and not feel like we have to hide it, you know, that is the antidote to shame. I know Brene Brown, I love Brene Brown. She's a shame researcher. She talks about the antidote to shame being just talking about it because shame breeds off secrecy, right? If you're ashamed, you don't want to talk about it,
Oh my
right?
God. Yes.
Right. And then she says the antidote is to talk about it because once you talk about it, it's gone. The shame is gone because you've talked about it. And I'm like, wow.
That makes so much sense, Kana,
Right.
because I mentioned to you that my mom told me
Right.
just before passing that she lived
Right.
with guilt and shame her whole life.
That's the shame, right? Feeling like not good enough or we're not supposed to. It
Yeah,
comes from that rigid pattern, right?
yeah,
It's like the rigidity of like right, wrong, good, bad, and the
yes,
perfectionism puts us into this shame spiral. But we have to know,
yes,
oh, it's okay. Just talking about it. And, you don't have to talk about it with everyone, but just talk about it to that one friend that you can trust, that say, hey, I'm like feeling shame right now. Do you have a minute? I just want to talk it through to just let this out and it usually stems from feeling not good enough, right? the core wounding probably is feeling not good enough.
Yeah, I really
And
like that because once you have someone that you could trust, you can talk
right.
it, bring it to the light, and
Yes.
then it could be dispersed or
Right.
eradicated.
Accepted. Right. And
Yeah,
accept that part. If
accepted.
the first step is like when you feel ashamed, like, oh, wait, am I trying to please someone outside of myself, right? People that I don't even know, right? Are we trying to, look good in front of people that we don't even know, whoever out there is, right? The Joneses, or, keeping up with the Joneses, like, just like, wait, I need to let all this go. I need to let go. What would other people think? Because, like, who are these other people that I'm trying to, please? They don't even know me. Right? So then the minute you go, oh, I'm in shame. Oh, what's the shame? Oh, I feel like, well, I should have more money by now. I'm 50, like there's a story that the narrative. So listen to your narrative, right? And then be your best cheerleader. Oh no, but am I doing the best I can? Yes. Was I expecting to get a divorce? No. And then have this like go, you know what, we can get through it. We'll get through it. There's nothing shameful about it. We're human. We make mistakes. And it keeps us humble, don't you think? And if we know that if this happens to me, it happens to everyone, to me, it could happen to anyone, right? So it also keeps us humble as well, because this can happen to anyone, any, illness, disease, right? Just, you know, things can happen to anyone. So then it gives us the more we transcend the shame and actually acknowledge and accept this part of us and love this part of us that are vulnerable, that might not, be a star, might not be perfect. If we can love these parts, it also gives us compassion to be able to hold that space for other people and not judge them like, oh, that person doesn't have money. Oh, I don't want to deal with it. No, it's like, oh, they must be struggling. How can I help? How can I, this she must be struggling. What can I do? I feel like that's where compassion comes in. So the more we're compassionate with ourselves, we can become more compassionate with others because we've been there. We know the struggle, and it can happen to anyone. And being kind to ourselves. There's this beautiful video that I love, and you can probably Google baby pouring uh, juice. There's this mother that the baby's like maybe 2 or 3. She's pouring juice, but she spills it all, and she's laughing. And it's like, can you imagine growing up like that, where you spill the juice and you're laughing, and the mother's laughing with you? Like, that's not how I grew up. I grew up like, oh, everything has to be perfect. Like, oh my God, people are coming, clean up the room, like everything, if I spill something, it's like, oh, I needed, it may, no fault of my parents, but they would get annoyed, because then it's like more work for them, right? Because that's how they grew up. But can you imagine the freedom of making that mistake of just like spilling juice and like all over the table, on the floor, and the mother's just videotaping and laughing with the child? I mean, imagine the freedom she has, right? Growing
Right.
up without shame.
Yes. Yeah, that's
So
beautiful.
yeah, so it's like we get to make these mistakes, and it gets to be like it's okay, you know? So yeah, the antidote to shame that I discovered was like, oh, just accepting all parts of ourselves, radical acceptance. If we can
I love
accept
that.
these parts and just love ourselves instead of being ashamed and not wanting to share. Because once we share, then someone will be like, oh yeah, I felt that too. And then it gives them permission to feel good about themselves, to go, oh, I'm not alone. It's not just me. Makes
Yeah.
us human.
Yes, yes. It shows our humanity for sure.
Yeah, and it keeps us genuinely, humble, and a healthy sense of humility. And going with this, I when I met Shirdi Sai Baba in human form in India, um, it was such a divine, profound experience. It was on his Mahasamadhi day, the day he left his body. He left his body Tuesday, October 15th, 1918. I was there Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, and I could feel him saying, come visit me. And I thought I was going to visit his ashram, and he was sitting there. He was sitting there on the grass. You could have easily missed it. Like if your heart wasn't open, you could just interpret it as a beggar, right? Just sitting on the street. But I knew, my heart knew, my heart was just like, stop. And when I just coming out of the car, I could feel his presence. I could feel his aura, right? I immediately just with just no thought kneeled down and just cried and wept because he carried the most humble energy, the most humility, humbleness. And this is a saint that can heal someone instantly. This is someone you touch him and like he could change the world, right? And he's just sitting there with such humility and humbleness. And that was such a profound experience. For me, that was just a gift of like, yeah, just stay humble, stay, we all make mistakes. We all have egos sometimes, but, going and not beating yourself up when that happens, but go, wait, let's come back to the humility. Let's come back to the humbleness. If this divine saint is this humble, you know, it's just yeah just it, and it was a pure it's not made up humbleness or humility. It was just a pure authentic humility, and I just wept in tears and just pure divine love. And he touched my forehead, got a darshan from him. It was just changed my whole life, and I could feel what true wealth was. Wealth is on the inside. He showed me wealth is from the inside out. Yeah.
It's a reminder that um, even the affluent
Right.
are, may we'll see our affluent celebrities committing
Right.
suicide. So money is not
Right.
the end all.
Exactly, right. This it doesn't, right, probably magnifies whatever they're feeling. So, if they're already struggling, it'll magnify that struggle, unfortunately. They might put more pressure on themselves. And again, probably shame, right? I'm a celebrity. I should have it all together. But it would be great for even celebrities to go, no, it's okay to show your human side. You don't have to be perfect. I can't imagine being in, such being scrutinized like that in front of the public all the time. So I feel like even with celebrities, it's like, yes, it's okay to, make mistakes and own it and, be okay with it and just accept that part of self.
Absolutely.
Right? Because they're probably good at that one area of their whatever their celebrity is, whether it's in acting or singing. They're probably really good at acting or singing, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're good at everything else, right? Maybe we put them on a pedestal, but they're just as human as, we're all equal. We're all equal. Yeah, we're all equal and we're all human.
Kana, what other work are you doing with clients, etc.?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I right now there's a lot of ancestral healing work. So I'm getting a lot of ancestors since coming back from India. I since that blessing from Baba, and of course that Christ energy, like they've opened me up to to feel and sense a lot more energy. And so the veil on the other side is a lot, thinner. So I literally have ancestors tapping me. So in client sessions, I'll have, and that might not be all the time because it depends on what the client needs, but I'll have ancestors tapping me. And I'm like, oh, wait, pause. There's an ancestor tapping me. We gotta, this is where the wounding came from. And they'll volunteer, because they want the healing too. Just because they crossed over, it doesn't mean they're free. Not always, right? If they die with that wounding, or if they die feeling unworthy, they have the opportunity to heal it on the other side, but sometimes they get stuck. And a lot of the ancestors that tap me are the ones that haven't, excuse me, fully crossed over, that are still stuck. So they'll tap me going, okay, and they'll share their story. This is what happened. I was, in the war, or I was, I committed suicide, or this is the grief that I felt. And then I would relay that to the client, and then we would give this ancestral healing. And usually and then we'll track the pattern, and we'll heal the pattern, because that pattern gets passed down generation after generation after generation. And I love family constellation work, so I kind of incorporate family constellation work, which is made famous by Bert Hellinger. So I kind of do
How
my
does that
own.
look?
Yeah,
Like,
so family constellation work, if you YouTube it, you'll find it. Bert Hellinger was the one that made it famous. So he created, and this is the way he realized we could do ancestral healing. And I think he went to like a tribe in Africa, and he saw these tribes doing it, right? And that would make sense. The tribes would just have other tribal members represent the person, maybe what we'll call it the client, is maybe having problems with a relationship problem. So then the tribe will say, okay, you represent that father, you represent the mother. So Bert Hellinger brought that from Africa to here. And now with Bert Hellinger's model, you have to have a lot of people, so people come and Bert Hellinger is, okay, so the client comes and says, what's your problem? Well, I have a, issue relationship with my mother. Okay. So he would scope out the room and say, okay, can you represent the mother? They say, okay, can you represent the father? Can you represent the brother? Whatever. If it's an illness, can you represent the cancer? Right? And we would have he would have one person represent that whatever that role is. And it's so fascinating because you don't need training, but every person that volunteers to represent that role literally becomes that role, becomes the essence of that role. So we get a lot of information from that role. And then the whole point of the constellation work is then there's peace that's made, harmony is made. Once we figure out what the problem was, they can peace make, and then peace is restored in the family system. And with constellation work, we learned that, any ancestor that's missing, like let's say you were adopted and you don't know your family, and you don't know your biological mother or father. That's so important because that's a whole lineage, two lineages on both sides that's missing in your field. So, we really want every person matters. So we have to include every single person. And we talked about shame. A lot of times when there's shame, they don't want to talk about it. So whatever there's trauma, the family member that endured the most trauma, like they don't want to talk about it. So that ancestor literally gets forgotten. Well, if that ancestor is forgotten, guess what? The descendant literally carries the same patterning of that ancestor, not out of punishment, but as as a cry for healing, for that pattern to end, for that pattern to come to completion. So the descendant usually carries on that patterning. So that's why we track it from the point where it was created, so we can make peace with that ancestor, the original wounding of the ancestor, and the descendant could say, "Oh, I see it comes from you. I don't need to carry this. It belongs to you. I let it go." And then the pattern and the whole, the programming also lets go. And sometimes you need several rounds. I know I had the atomic bomb wounding because I had ancestors that died in the atomic bomb. And it took like, oh my goodness, I think I did like 8 constellations, because I felt like I was the bomb, and then I felt like I was waiting for the bomb to drop, like all facets of the bomb. My whole body decided to take on. So when that got cleared, I could feel all my ancestors up here like this lift. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I was pressed or clouded with my unhealed ancestors until they were like lifted. I'm like, wow. And I'm like, oh, I have, even much deeper connection to the divine. And it's all clear now here up here. So you don't realize how heavy that crown could be with all your ancestral wounding until it's clear, because you don't know what you don't know, right? You think this heaviness, like you just think this is the way you are until like you feel lighter and go, wow, I could be this light. So I do a lot of ancestral healing because a lot of the patterns didn't start with you. It started with the ancestors.
That makes so
Yeah.
much sense because I feel
Yeah.
we definitely carry our ancestral healing
Yes.
and traumas. Yeah.
Trauma, exactly. And it's called unconscious family loyalty. So we don't even know we're carrying it. Like I had no idea how much of the bomb and all that trauma from the bomb and being killed, and being Japanese, I probably had the cultural trauma too, right? And so, you don't realize that. You think I'm just having money issues, but it was like, no, it was all of this, you know. So yeah, so I help people track the pattern and help people like unravel, one onion layer at a time. So it could be several sessions. So don't give up. Don't think that you could do it in one session. It usually requires deep woundings, usually require several sessions to work through. I also help people now with that we're talking about the right to exist, helping people anchor in their right to exist because that's foundation. Again, we can't have a successful career or finance or relationship if we don't, if we're not fully feeling like we have the right to exist. So I help people go, where is it compromised? Because it's usually compromised in the first 2 months, like from utero to 2 months, boom, it's anchored in. Right. So if it's compromised in the first 2 months, it stays that way until, well, the good news is you can revise it, but you can't revise what you don't know. So that I learned from my class in transformational NLP, and that's from Wilhelm Reich, a psychologist. He was Freud's student. He discovered, after treating all these patients, discovered there's 5 fundamental birthrights. This is a fundamental right we have from birth. So nothing we have to earn, achieve, work hard for. It's a birthright. And there might be many more, but in his model, there's 5. And the first one is the right to exist. We have a full and uncompromised right to exist. That's a birthright. We forget that. And that includes taking up space, right? That includes being worthy. Like, we are already worthy. We are born worthy. So that's the big one. That's the first one. The second one is the right to need and have our needs met. This one for me was super compromised. I didn't understand what that meant. Like, wait, you don't have to work hard. You don't have to like really try to get our need. Like, you don't have to work hard, earn, be the best for our needs to be
Yes.
met. Asians, right? I'm like competitive. Like, I have to be the best, and then I can finally get my needs met. No, it's like, wait, what? This is a birthright? Like, you just ask and your needs are met? Like, I've never had that happen. What? And because everything is based on, our life is based on our beliefs. So if we don't believe we can have our, the right to need and have, like, I think Abraham Hicks says there's a, like, I think they have like a book called Ask and You Shall Receive. I'm like, what, you just ask and you, like, it just receive? Like, how's that possible? Like, you have to work for it. There has to be suffering. So my belief was it has to be suffering and like pain, and you can't just ask and receive. That's too easy. So when I heard this, I'm like, wait, that's a birthright? Like, the right to need and have your needs met is a birthright? Wait, what? So it took me, I was like, what? What? Like, it didn't register. It took me like 3 days to go, wait, really? Like, really? We could just ask and boom, it could just be met? And so, yes, that is our fundamental birthright. We have the right to need and have our needs met, like, organically. It's not something we have to go through the hoops and suffer, and it's like, it's not a struggle. We can ask and our needs be met. So when this is compromised, and this gets anchored in 2 to 4 months, boom. So, and it could be inherited, like we talked about. It could be ancestral, like your mother's right to need may have been compromised, meaning you grew up with it already compromised, right? And the key wounding of this one is not good enough. So if you don't feel good enough, most likely your right to need is compromised. So how to you know heal that? You have to know you have the right to need and have your needs met. It is not something you have to work hard for, achieve. And this wounding is because growing up, your needs weren't met, or let's say you got punished. So every time you needed something, you either got neglected, abandoned, or punished. Needs equals feeling worse, right? Feeling bad. And every time you reach for something, you feel even worse. Then as a baby, you're so smart. You're like, well, I myself have no needs. It's not safe to have needs. So what happens is, I myself have no needs, but I'll make sure your needs are met. This is the overgivers, the people pleasers. But the gift of this patterning is we're also empaths, and we have the ability to love. So that's the gift of the patterning. So if you can really fully resource yourself to know that you have the right to need, it's going to feel scary first to ask. Like, for me, it was really scary to ask the simplest things. It was really scary. But the more you do it, and then once you ask and when it gets met, I want you to consciously remember, oh, I survived. I didn't die. I wasn't annihilated. I wasn't humiliated. Like, and I was supported. Like, I was safe. I teach self-havening. I was safe. I asked for my needs. I got it and I was safe. Yay. The more you acknowledge that, the more you build that trust, right, within yourself. And then it becomes easier and easier and easier to ask for your needs. It's like riding a bike. You have to learn how to exercise this muscle because it's been
That's
dormant.
also, yeah.
Right. And the people with this pattern is, what happens is you're waiting, because, like, I myself have no needs. I can't ask. So you're just waiting. You're waiting for someone to give you the opportunity. You're waiting for someone to give you your needs, because you forget, you have no conscious awareness that you can give those needs to yourself. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes.
So, yeah, so you have to know, oh, I can fulfill my own needs now because I'm an adult. Yes, when you were a child, you did have to wait, right? You did have to wait for someone to give you your needs, but you're an adult now, so you don't have to wait anymore. You can give it to yourself. And that's and I'm like, well, of course, what would I chose a profession where I'm a voice actress, I'm a singer. So of course I would choose a profession where I'm auditioning and waiting to be hired, waiting to, right, to book a job. I'm like, oh my God, my whole life has been around this patterning. So I'm like, I'm gonna stop waiting. I'm just gonna start creating whatever it is. Just create, 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 right? Just make that first step. But even if it's auditioning, don't feel like, oh, I have to wait to book. No, imagine yourself booking the job. Imagine, what it is. Don't wait, just take action. Be the creator. You have to know you have the creational authority over your life. You have full sovereignty over your life. You didn't when you were a child, but you do now, so you don't have to wait anymore. And if that fear comes up, go, oh, it's that fear of being abandoned, not alive. It's not the truth of me now. And if, let's say you were, let's say someone did, like go, no, I'm not going to help you with your, guess what? You're an adult. You can choose again. Choose someone that, that will probably say yes, right? You always can make another choice at every given moment. And that was huge for me going, oh, if someone says no, I can choose again. I can ask someone else. Like I could keep asking until I get a yes. But most importantly, ask yourself first, wait, can I give this need to myself first? Because that's the part we forget, that we can give it to ourselves first. So if the first question you want to ask is, wait, can I give this need to myself first? Yeah. And if not, can I ask someone else? Yes. But ask someone that's kind, like set yourself up to succeed. Don't ask someone that's like standoffish that will say no, you know, because you're still vulnerable at this point. Ask someone that you feel safe asking and slowly build that. Third one is the right to separate and still belong. So you have the full and uncompromised right to separate, individuate, and still belong. Now, this gets compromised about 3 to 6 months. And this is if you have like a controlling parent that just takes credit for everything, or that just says, you can't do this. You have that you feel like you need permission from your parents, where you feel like you have no autonomy. This is how this gets compromised. The fourth one is the right to take your own actions and have your own consequences. The fifth one, we were talking about rigidity with the rigid pattern. That's the fifth one, the right to love and be loved. So when this is compromised, this is between a year and 2 years. When this is compromised, the right to love and be loved is compromised. It's called the rigid pattern. Stephen Kessler calls it the rigid pattern. He has a book on all of the 5 organismic rights, a wonderful book. And he says this is the right to love and be loved. When this is compromised, when you're operating out of the survival pattern of rigid pattern, is you think that you're a perfectionist. You think you are your performance, meaning, oh, my value is based on my performance. So this is why I have to be good, because if I'm good and I'm really good at something, then I'm finally valuable and worthy. So you have to know, for these people that have the right to love and be loved compromise, you have to know you're lovable exactly as you are. You don't have to be the best at whatever. You don't have to, like, you are not your performance. You are not your performance. For me, I had to say this, like, I still say this like a mantra. I'm not my performance. I am not my performance. My value is not based on my performance. My worthy is not, based on my performance. Like, I am valuable and lovable exactly as I am. Again, that's a birthright. It's a birthright. You have the right to love and be loved exactly as you are, flaws and all, right? It's not like, oh, once I'm good at this, once I do my inner work, once I heal my trauma, then I'm lovable. No, you're lovable with your trauma and all. Yes, you want to heal, you want to do your inner work, but you're still lovable exactly as you are. And for me, this one was huge because I remember being ashamed of, like, getting angry. I'm like, I'm spiritual. I've been on the spiritual path since I was 16. Like, I should be angry by now. I'm so ashamed of my own anger, right? But at one point, I would get angry and I'm like, oh, no, this anger belongs. This too belongs. Like, this part of me, I love this part of me. I need to love this part of me. This part of me does belong. I'm angry because something is not in alignment with my true self. So anger is not a bad thing, right? If you're angry all the time, then yeah, you might want to look at why you're angry all the time. But the people that are like, the right to need, like the people pleasers, the people that don't get angry that often, that just hold it inside, those are the people like you want to look at anger. Like it's okay to have anger and it's okay to love that anger. And the minute I started loving my anger, it was that shame again disappeared. Every time I would have like a shameful part and I'd be like, oh, I'm so, oh, wait, nope, nope. There, and I would catch myself being ashamed. Like in the midway, I'm like, no, I go, this too belongs. This part of me too is lovable. And I would say, I love this part of me. And I would kind of put that part of me in front and say, I love you. And if this part feels shamed, I would say, what part of me? It's usually a younger part of me. So I go, what is this part needing? It's like parts work. I would give what this part needs. So this part feels embraced, loved, and whole. Oh, I just want love. I want attention. Then I would give that part attention. And we forget we can give this to ourselves because we're waiting for something outside of us to feel, right? We're waiting for like when that person feels better, then I'll feel safe. When like my job is perfect, then I'll feel. No, bring in the safety first because we're the radio tower. So when we bring in the safety and breathe that in, we resonate at safety, then we're likely to have more safety when we you know anchor in safety within ourselves, and it only takes a minute or two, and we can do this together. Just imagine, close your eyes, imagine like where do you feel safe? Do you feel safe in your home? Like where is there a place that you vacation to that you love, that you feel safe? Just pick any place that you absolutely love, that you feel safe. Breathe that safety in through that image. For me, I love Austria, and there's this beautiful place called Hallstatt with a beautiful lake. That's my go-to anchor for safety. I feel safe, I feel peace, I feel calm. It could be your home, it could be on your couch, it could be in your bed. Wherever it is, breathe that safety in. Feel that safety in. Breathe that into every cell of your body. And then once you feel that safety, feel where you feel safe in your body. Like, it could be earlobes, it could be a fingertip, wherever. Just feel where it feels safe in your body. Do you feel safe in your belly? Do you feel safe in your heart? Breathe that safety and feel the safety within your body and breathe that in. Knowing that you can give safety to yourself and keep strengthening that safety. Make that times 10. Times 100. Breathe that safety into every cell of your body. Breathe that in. And I love the self-havening where we're stroking our arms. You could anchor it in that safety as you're stroking. Say, it may not have been safe in the past, but it's safe for me now. You could rub your heart. It's safe now. And it took minutes to do, right? So anytime you feel off, just think of that. Have a safety anchor. Have that go-to image where it just imagining that it triggers instant safety, right? And it could be a person, like, if there's a person you love or an animal, right? If you have a pet and just like thinking about that animal just makes you feel instantly safe. If there's a person you love, that just imagining them, you feel, instantly safe. Just have that, or maybe sunrise, sunset, ocean, whatever it is, have that image and that will instantly trigger safety. So practice that, and anchor that in and anchor that in. And you keep practicing that so that when you don't feel safe, you just have that image and breathe into that. Oh, I can just have safety in this now moment. Even it might feel chaotic on the outside, I don't have to be in fear about it. I can have safety right here because I'm my sovereign being. So I can create safety from within.
Thank you for that addition,
Yeah,
for that beautiful gift as well, Kana.
you're welcome. Yeah. So that's kind of some of the things I do in our sessions. Yeah.
We just talk about Mary Magdalene.
I would love to talk about Mary Magdalene.
Yes. Yes.
love her. I love her with all my heart. I've definitely had a mystical experience with her in the south of France. I have shared this previously in a different podcast, but I'd be happy to share over and over because I
Yes.
love her and I
Okay.
feel like it's time for Mary Magdalene's energy to just spread the whole entire world. And yes, and Mary Magdalene was Jesus's wife. They were married. Jesus could not have fulfilled his mission without Mary Magdalene. They conveniently left her out, in the history books or whoever. It was just it's ironic. And oh, I just want to also share this. I also read in I think I saw one of the YouTube videos that in Japan they had samurai like female warriors. Like they did an archaeology dig and they discovered like half of the the skeletons that they found, the warriors were women. Again, they were magically deleted,
Created. Yes.
right? And it was so beautiful to like know, yeah, there were female samurai warriors battling with the men. And like I said, I think they found like 30%. That's a huge majority. And I know being Japanese, I always felt like, oh, the men are the ones that go to work. I had that unworthiness as a woman. So hearing this, I just had a huge reset of, yes, women are powerful. We are powerful. We have the womb chakra. The womb chakra is really powerful. So yes, I would be happy to share Mary Magdalene. Um, so my experience with Mary Magdalene was in south of France. I've always felt a deep connection to her, like with Jesus. I felt like she was always in my heart. I just had this feeling like her love and her energy, and it was always in my heart somehow. And so when my mom passed, I had some extra finances, and I was guided to go to the south of France. So I went twice. So the first time I went on a
So
private.
fortunate.
Yes, so fortunate. It's time to go back. I really want to go back. Um, but the first time I was guided to do a private tour. So I wanted this to be a very sacred journey, just my own journey, right? Reconnecting with Mary Magdalene. So I hired a private tour guide that was really skilled, or it was just specifically for Mary Magdalene. So it was a private tour guide that knew, that did all the locations of Mary Magdalene. And so she took me, and the first place um, that I felt her energy was de Galamoose. Gorge de Galamoose. If you can look it up, it's there. It's a cave, and now it's a church called St. Anthony's Church. It's a beautiful cave like this. It's the inside of the cave looks like a triangle like this, and it's now made into a church. So when she took me, it's up on the hill. It's up on the hill, and you go up, 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 and then you go down again into this church. And Mira, I wept for a whole hour because I could feel her presence there. I could feel her energy. And I wept for a whole hour just remembering her presence. And then the memory started coming, like the memory of me being there in that time of Jesus. I think I was just a little girl and she would teach children. So I was like fortunate in that incarnation to be one of the little girls that, she taught. And I remember her holding my hand and that love, talk about the love of the divine mother. She was an avatar. She was not a prostitute. She was an avatar. And I think she was born like Christ. She was born very evolved, right? And went through all the initiations that Jesus did. They just conveniently, you know, took her out. But I could feel, and this is a personal experience and memory and remembering, I could feel her holding my hand in that timeline, and my hand was just absorbed in love. Just everything, every cell of my body was absorbed in love. And I remember her teaching me everything in that lifetime about love. Everything that she taught, I remember absorbing like a sponge. And she was clearly, and if you go to the Pyrenees mountain in France, like the whole mountain region is immersed in her love. Like you could feel her love. This is avatar, right? This is like what an avatar does. They infuse love into the whole mountain area, and 2,000 years later it's still radiating with love. It's not your normal round mountain region. It's flooded with love. You go, and it's special. It's like this divine love that she put in, radiated, anchored in, and it's still there 2,000 years later. Now that's definitely a working of an avatar. So, and how did people, she taught in the caves of France, right? After the crucifixion, everybody fled. They say they took a boat and fled to the south of France, Mother Mary as well. Um, and how, she taught in these caves, right? Incognito. How did she gather these people, right? There's no flyers. There's no, right? There's no flyers. There's no internet. There's no text messaging. Do you know what she did?
What?
She radiated her heart energy out. So the people that were a vibrational match would be guided and be drawn to these caves. And of course, word of mouth, right? Word of mouth. But that's what she did. I remember her going like this, infusing her heart energy out, and people that were on that vibrational frequency would be drawn, and they would come and listen and hear. And that's how she taught. So that's the first experience, right? And I remember the cave. So going back to the tour, so she was this tour guide was taking me to this quote unquote womb cave where it's like a rebirth, and she was like, insistent on me going there, and I'm like, but my heart was being pulled to this other area, and I'm like, what's over there? I want to go. No, 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 we got to do this. I'm like, okay. So we kind of just honored her wishes, and we were meditating in the womb, but to be honest, I wasn't feeling much energy there, because it just wasn't for me. My heart, I always listen to my heart, so I just let her stay there. I said, I'll be right back. And my heart was literally just pulling me to this location. And, you can't see it because it's a trail, right? So we're walking. You can't see anything on the trail, but there's this big stone. But my heart is like, my heart knows, like our heart knows everything because our soul is there. Our soul is in our hearts. And our soul has all right? Every memory that's been recorded is in our soul. So I just let my heart guide me. I'm just walking, walking, walking. I like literally climb over this rock. My body just starts doing it. I climb over this big mound, and guess what? There was a huge cave on the other side of this mound that you can't see off the path. And as I climb in and I walk into this cave, I remember this is the cave I lived in. This was the cave I lived in that time of Mary Magdalene. So it's this confirmation that, like, yes, I was there. I always felt like I was. And my spiritual master said, yes, we were there in the time of Jesus. A lot of us have come back. So if anyone thinks, you have, most likely you were. You're watching this, you were. You're not crazy. You're not delusional. We all came to serve in this lifetime. So it's like, I'm like, this is my cave. And it's like, light, really just light shine. I put my hand in certain places, activated the light codes again, and just did some sound healing, just did some toning and just light language, and it was just like, I'm back, you guys, I'm back. I was so excited. So our hearts remember all of this. So it was a confirmation. Yes, I was here in the south of France with her. It sounds like a very, out there story, but many of us were. It's not just me. I was just one of the many children that were, fortunate enough to receive her teaching and her guidance. That just stayed with me for all eternity. So that was my first like remembering, and like, yes, this, I knew it. I knew I had a connection to Mary Magdalene, and I think a lot of people are now remembering, being Mary Magdalene. I think what's happening is her soul probably, because they're avatars, her soul probably split. And and my guess is it's like it's all the divine feminine aspect of our own self. So, if you're remembering that you were Mary Magdalene, it's probably those codes in us that are being activated. I think it's in all of us. It's not just, oh, I was Mary. No, we're all, we're all God. We're all, and when I went to Egypt, all the gods like Krishna, Buddha, they all appeared, in the rocks, and they said, I am you, you are me, we are one. So if anyone is remembering her, yes, again, confirmation, you are remembering her, your own essence. That is her archetype. You know, we were probably all servants of the Magdalene lineage, so we have all her downloaded, you know, her consciousness in us, you know, and it's time to cultivate that. The world needs it more than ever. Shine your light. We don't have to be in hiding anymore. You know, I know she was in hiding through her whole life right after that. We don't have to be in hiding anymore. You know, I'm starting to get out there, you know, slowly but surely as well. But you know, we have this template of being in hiding because it's not safe. But I think it's like it's time in this incarnation to actually be all out, coming out. But so and then so the second time around, I went to La Sainte Baume, where her relics are. So there's this beautiful church called Saint Saint Mary Magdalene. And yes, and her relics are there. There's a skull, you know, down in the underneath the church. There's a stairways down, and it's her relics are beautifully saved. Now, I personally, this is my opinion, the skull that's there is too perfect. It's not her skull. I knew it when the minute I looked, I'm like, that's not her skull. But the little bone, this tiny little bone relic that's there underneath, that's her bone. That's her energy. All the love that's being emitted out is radiating out of that tiny little bone. And if your heart is open, you will know it. You will know it. My heart, and you're like, that. And again, an avatar, right? It takes, that's a yogi, that's an avatar. The little bone is emitting all this love. That's an avatar. Um, and so you go in there, you feel her love. Again, I knelt on my knees and wept, going, yes, I keep forgetting, but I came to serve in this love. I came, whatever that is, right? I came to serve in this love. I forgot, but I remember now, you know, and just that love, it just, you know, radiated. And then after that, I was guided to go up to the church to the left-hand side. And these sacred power spots are usually like off the beaten path. It's never like the main shiny thing. It's usually like the one that looks dilapidated, you know, the one that looks a little rusty. You know, if your heart's open, you'll feel it. So I was guided to go to the left side of the altar, not the main big one. And there's Jesus on the cross, right? Because it's a Catholic church, I think. And so, you know, and there's a skull that says Saint Sidian, right? And I'm looking at that skull like, that's her skull. Her skull is right there. But it says Saint Sidian because it's not for everybody, right? Like it's for people that know. And so I'm like literally guided again, my heart, walk. I'm guided and I stand right in front of that skull. And I hear, it's me, it's me, it's me. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I'm like, oh my God. And I usually don't hear clearly like that. But it was clear as night, like as, you know, as day. It's me, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I'm like, what? Where? And then this shaft of light comes down, boom, and I'm like activated, you know? And it's interesting because my friend confirmed this because she was outside the church and said, Kana, the time you were there, she's like, I saw that light. She's like, I was outside the church and I saw the shaft of light just come down into the church. So I witnessed it. You're not delusional. You're not crazy. I witnessed it from the outside. I'm like, thank you for that confirmation, you know? And I took a picture of that and I guess it's no longer there, that skull. I
Yeah.
know. Right. And so I've been meditating on it and meditating. So I've just been merging with, you know, like just allowing her consciousness to merge with my consciousness and just, you know, so as I'm sharing, I want everybody to feel her consciousness. It's not, you know, I was able to be the recipient of it. Maybe many of you, you know, maybe you went to South of France and got codes as well, but I'm here to share that with everybody here on this podcast, all these codes, these Magdalene codes that are people are ready to receive, that code of divine love, that feminine love, compassion, kindness. And I'm feeling sounds coming through. So can we do some
Oh,
sound?
yeah.
Yeah. And she's saying, I am in all your hearts. I am in all your hearts. Remember me, remember my love. Right? Remember my love for humanity. We are all here to serve in the love, to radiate the love, to be love. Yeah, that's our true nature. May Mary Magdalene's love and her energy bless everybody here today. May your life be blessed with her love, with the love of the Divine Mother, with the love of God's grace. So be it, and so it is.
Kana, what a treat. I can't thank you enough.
I feel like thank you for bringing this beautiful energy. It's thank you for allowing this to happen. Yeah, I have a lot of free sound healing MP3s on my website. We were talking about the five organismic rights, the right to I created an online course that
Okay.
it's that I put on YouTube. So if anybody wants to do that online course, just email me angelicsoundtherapy@gmail.com, and you could just make a donation, and I'll just send you in parts. But it's all, I already have that. So just make a donation. I'll send you, part one, part two, so I'll be happy to do that. My website is angelicsoundtherapy.com.